Hi again, Callum here from Study in Australia TV. We're continuing our look at Australia's famous and most interesting people, from sopranos to sports stars to medical geniuses in no particular order. Wow, there's many more as well, but where do you stop? Joan Sutherland. Dame Joan Alston Sutherland, OMACDBE, 7th of November 1926 to 10th of October 2010, was an Australian dramatic coloratura soprano noted for her contribution to the renaissance of the bel canto repertoire from the late 1950s through to the 1980s. She possessed a voice combining extraordinary agility, accurate intonation, supremely pinpoint staccatos, a trill and a tremendous upper register, although music critics often complained about the imprecision of her diction. Sutherland was the first Australian to win a Grammy Award for Best Classical Performance, Vocal Soloist, with or without orchestra, in 1962. Sutherland married Australian conductor and pianist Richard Boninge on 16th of October 1954. Boninge gradually convinced her that Wagner might not be her fuck, and that since she could produce high notes and coloratura with great ease, she could perhaps explore the bel canto repertoire. She eventually settled in this fuck, spending most of her career singing dramatic coloratura soprano. During her career and after, Sutherland received many honours and awards. She was made a Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, in the 1961 Birthday Honours. That year she was named the Australian of the Year. Sutherland is a distinguished member of the Sigma Alpha Iota International Music Fraternity. In the 1975 Queen's Birthday Honours, she was in the first group of people to be named Companions of the Order of Australia, or AC. She was elevated within the Order of the British Empire from Commander to Dame Commander, DBE, in the 1979 New Year's Honours. On the 29th of November 1991, the Queen bestowed on Sutherland the Order of Merit, or the OM. Mark Webber. Mark Allen Webber, AO, born on the 27th of August 1976, is an Australian former professional racing driver who competed in Formula One, or F1, from 2002 to 2013, and the FIA World Endurance Championship between 2014 and 2016. He is a champion of the 2015 FIA World Endurance Championship, WEC, for Porsche, with German Tino Bernhard and New Zealand Brendan Hartley. Webber began karting between 12 and 13 and achieved early success, before progressing to car racing in the Australian Formula Ford Championship and the British Formula 3 Championship. He competed for 2 years opposite Bernd Schneider in the FIA GT Championship with the AMG Mercedes team, finishing runner-up in the 1998 season with 5 wins in 10 races before finishing second in the 2001 International Formula 3000 Championship with the Supernova Racing outfit. Webber made his F1 debut with the Minardi team in the 2002 session and finished 5th in his first race, the Australian Grand Prix. He moved to the Jaguar squad for each of the 2003 and the 2004 championships. For the 2005 season, he was granted an early release from his contract with Jaguar and moved to the Williams team, securing his first podium finish at the Monaco Grand Prix. Webber remained at Williams until the 2006 campaign, switching to the Red Bull squad and stayed at the team for the rest of his Formula One career. He achieved 9 F1 Grand Prix victories, 13 pole positions, and finished 3rd in the World Drivers' Championship in each of the 2010, 2011, and 2013 seasons with Red Bull. He left F1 post-2013 and moved to the WEC alongside Bernhard and Hartley in a Porsche 919 hybrid in the fully professional Le Mans Prototype 1 category from the 2014 to 2016 seasons. The trio won 8 races in the final 2 seasons and the 2015 World Endurance Drivers' Championship. He retired from motorsport in 2016, becoming a television pundit for Channel 4 in the UK and Network 10 in Australia and a driver manager. Webber received the Australian Sports Medal in 2000 and was appointed Officer of the Order of Australia, or AO, in the 2017 Australia Day Honours. Webber is an inductee of both the Australian Motorsport Hall of Fame and the FIA Hall of Fame. Dawn Fraser. Dawn Fraser, AC, MBE, born on the 4th of September 1937, is an Australian freestyle champion swimmer and former politician. She is one of only 3 swimmers to have won the same Olympic individual event 3 times. In her case, the women's 100-metre freestyle. Yet within Australia, she is often known for her controversial behaviour as much as for her athletic ability. Fraser won 8 Olympic medals, including 4 gold medals and 6 Commonwealth Games gold medals. She also held 39 records. The 100 metres freestyle record was hers for 15 years from 1st of December 1956 to the 8th of January 1972. During the 1964 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Fraser angered swimming team sponsors and the Australian Swimming Union, or the ASU, by marching in the opening ceremony against their wishes and wearing an older swimming costume in competition, as she found it more comfortable than the one supplied by the sponsors. She was also accused of stealing an Olympic flag from a flagpole outside Emperor Hirohito's palace, the Kokyo. In 1979, a movie called Dawn was made about Fraser's life and career. She was named the Australian of the Year in 1964, was inducted into the International Swimming Hall of Fame in 1965 as Dawn Ware, and was made a member of the Order of the British Empire, the MBE, in 1967 and appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia, AO, in 1998. Also in 1998, she was voted Australia's greatest female athlete in history. She was named Australian Female Athlete of the Century by the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, who had inducted her as their first female member back in 1985. In 1999, the International Olympic Committee named her the world's greatest living female water sports champion. On 14th of July 2000, Fraser was awarded the Australian Sports Medal for outstanding contribution as a swimming competitor. As part of the 2018 Queen's Birthday Honours, she was advanced to a Companion of the Order of Australia AC. Robert Helpmann. Sir Robert Murray Helpmann, CBE, 9th of April 1909 to 28th September 1986, was an Australian ballet dancer, actor, director and choreographer. After early work in Australia, he moved to Britain in 1932, where he joined the Vic Wells Ballet under its creator, Ninette de Voilà. He became one of the company's leading men, partnering Alicia Markova and later Margot Fontaine. When Frederick Ashton, the company's chief choreographer, was called up for military service in the Second World War, Helpmann took over from him while continuing as a principal dancer. From the outset of his career, Helpmann was an actor as well as a dancer, and in the 1940s he turned increasingly to acting in plays at the Old Vic and in the West End. Most of his roles were in Shakespeare plays, but he also appeared in works by Shaw, Coward, Sartre and others. As a director, his range was wide, from Shakespeare to opera, musicals and pantomime. In 1965, Helpmann became co-director of the Australian Ballet, for whom he created several new ballets. He became sole director in 1975, but disagreements with the company's board led to his dismissal a year later. He directed for Australian opera and acted in stage plays into the 1980s. Although primarily a stage artist, he appeared in 15 films between 1942, One of Our Aircraft is Missing, and 1984, Second Time Lucky, including The Red Shoes, The Tales of Hoffmann, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Helpmann died in Sydney and was given a state funeral in St Andrew's Cathedral. The Prime Minister of the time, Bob Hawke, gave a tribute in the Parliament of Australia, and a motion of condolence was passed, a rare tribute for a non-politician. Helpmann is commemorated in the Helpmann Awards for Australian Performing Arts, established in his honour in 2001. Julie Bishop. Julie Isabel Bishop, born on the 17th of July 1956, is a former Australian politician who served as Minister for Foreign Affairs from 2013 to 2018 and Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party from 2007 to 2018. She was the Member of Parliament, or the MP, for Curtin from 1998 to 2019. She has been the Chancellor of the Australian National University since January 2020. Bishop was born in Lobethal, South Australia, and studied law at the University of Adelaide. Prior to entering politics, she worked as a commercial lawyer in Perth, Western Australia. She was the local managing partner of Clayton Utts. She was a delegate to the 1998 Constitutional Convention and also served as a director of the Special Broadcasting Service, also known as the SBS, and as a member of the Murdoch University Senate. Bishop was elected to Parliament at the 1998 federal election, representing the division of Curtin in Perth's western suburbs. In the Howard government, she served as Minister for Ageing 2003 to 2006, Minister for Education and Science from 2006 to 2007, and Minister for Women from 2006 to 2007. After the coalition lost the 2007 election, Bishop was elected Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party. She was the first woman to hold the position and was re-elected to the post at multiple leadership spills following her initial election. When the coalition returned to power at the 2013 election, Bishop was appointed Minister for Foreign Affairs in the Abbott government. She was Australia's first female foreign minister. Issues that arose during her tenure included changes to the Australian Foreign Aid Program, the international military intervention against ISIL, the shooting down of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17, and the execution of Australian citizens by Indonesia. In August 2018, a change of leadership of the Liberal Party resulted in Bishop stepping down from the Foreign Affairs portfolio. She chose to move to the backbench. Bishop retired from politics on the 11th of April 2019, before the impending federal election. Following her retirement from political life, Bishop took up a position on the board of the professional services company Palladium. In early August 2019, it was announced that she had agreed to take up the position of Chancellor of Australian National University, ANU, commencing in January 2020. She would be the university's first female Chancellor. Her foreign affairs honours include 2014 Commander of the Order of Merit, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and 2018 US Mission Award for Leadership Excellence, United States Mission, Australia. Jack Brabham, Sir John Arthur Brabham, AO, OBE, 2nd of April 1926 to 19th of May 2014, was an Australian racing driver who was Formula One World Championship in 1959, 1960 and 1966. He was a founder of the Brabham racing team and race car constructor that bore his name. Brabham was a Royal Australian Air Force flight mechanic and ran a small engineering workshop before he started racing midget cars in 1948. His successes with midgets in Australian and New Zealand road racing events led to his going to Britain to further his racing career. There he became part of the Cooper Car Company's racing team, building as well as racing cars. He contributed to the design of the mid-engined cars that Cooper introduced to Formula One and the Indianapolis 500, and won the Formula One World Championship in 1959 and 1960. In 1962, he established his own Brabham marque with fellow Australian Ron Turanak, in which the 1960s became the largest manufacturer of customer racing cars in the world. In the 1966 Formula One season, Brabham became the first, and still the only, man to win the Formula One World Championship driving one of his own cars. Brabham retired to Australia after the 1970 Formula One season, where he bought a farm and maintained business interests, which included the Engine Development's racing engine manufacturer and several garages. Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley. Yvonne Faye Goolagong-Cawley, AC MBE, from the 31st of July 1951, is an Australian retired professional tennis player. Goolagong was one of the world's leading players in the 1970s and early 1980s and was the highest ranked female Australian player on tour following the retirement of Margaret Court. At the age of 19, Goolagong won the French Open singles crown and the Australian Open doubles championships with Margaret Court. She won the ladies' singles or tournament at Wimbledon in 1971. In 1980, she became the first mother to win Wimbledon in 66 years. Goolagong would go on to win 14 Grand Slam tournament titles, 7 in singles, 4 at the Australian Open, 2 at Wimbledon, and 1 at the French Open, 6 in women's doubles, and 1 in mixed doubles. She represented Australia in 3 Fed Cup competitions, winning the title in 1971, 1973, and 1974, and was Fed Cup captain for 3 consecutive years. After retiring from professional tennis in 1983, Goolagong played in senior invitational competitions, endorsed a variety of products, worked as a touring professional, and held sports-related leadership roles. Goolagong was named Australian of the Year in 1971. She was appointed as a member of the Order of the British Empire in 1972 and as an officer of the Order of Australia in 1982. Goolagong was inducted into the Sports Australia Hall of Fame in 1985 and the International Tennis Hall of Fame in 1988. She leads the Goolagong National Development Camp for Indigenous boys and girls, which encourages Indigenous youth to stay in school. Lionel Rose. Lionel Edmund Rose, MBE, born 21st of June 1948 and died 8th of May 2011, was an Australian bantamweight boxer, the first Indigenous Australian to win a world title. He later became the first Indigenous Australian to be named Australian of the Year. Rose was the 2003 inductee for the Australian National Boxing Hall of Fame Moderns category and was the second person to be elevated to legend status in 2010. Born and raised at Jackson's Track in Victoria as well as the town of Warragul, Rose grew up in hardship and learned to box from his father, Roy, who was a skilled fighter at local house shows. Rose was one of the Gunditjmara, or the Dawood Warong people. Later, at the age of 10, Rose was given a pair of boxing gloves by his teacher, Ian Hawkins, who observed him shadowboxing. Aged about 15, he went under the tutelage of Frank Oakes, a Warragul trainer. He won the Australian Amateur Lightweight title at 15. During his time off from boxing in the 1970s, Rose embarked on a modest singing career in Australia, having hits with I Thank You and Please Remember Me in 1970. The song I Thank You was a top 5 nationwide hit, produced and written by Johnny Young and engineered by John L. Sayers. It was played as a substitute to the Australian national anthem during radio broadcasts of the State of Origin series and other sporting events by the comedic sports commentators, Roy Slavin and H.G. Nelson. In 1968, Lionel Rose became the first Aboriginal Australian of the Year and was made a member of the Order of the British Empire, MBE. In 2003, he was an inaugural inductee in the Australian National Boxing Hall of Fame. In 2005, Rose was also awarded the E9 title of King of the Ring. In 2011, he was inducted to the Victorian Aboriginal Honour Roll. Kate Campbell. Kate Natalie Campbell, OAM, born 20th of May 1992, is a Malawian-born Australian competitive swimmer and a current multiple world record holder who won 2 bronze medals at the 2008 Summer Olympics, a gold medal at the 2012 Summer Olympics, and a gold and a silver medal at the 2016 Summer Olympics. She is the current world record holder in the long course 4x100 metre freestyle relay with Team Australia and the short course 100 metre freestyle. In 2015, Campbell opened up about her struggles with body image. She confessed that pressure from TV and magazine models made her want to be skinny. However, it reached the point where she was getting sick. She read a chapter in Michael Phelps's book Beneath the Surface, where the line, "skinny swimmers aren't good swimmers," stuck out in her head. Her mother encouraged her to see a dietitian and now believes the sum of your worth is so much more than what you look like. She will represent Australia for the 4th time at the 2021 Tokyo Summer Olympics and has been chosen as the first female swimmer flag bearer. Peter Brock. Peter Jeffrey Brock, AM, born on 26th of February 1945, died 8th of September 2006, known as Peter Perfect, the King of the Mountain, or simply Brocky, was an Australian motor racing driver. Brock was most often associated with Holden for almost 40 years, although he raced vehicles of other manufacturers, including BMW, Ford, Volvo, Porsche, and Peugeot. He won the Bathurst 1000 endurance race 9 times, the Sandown 500 touring car race 9 times, the Australian Touring Car Championship 3 times, the Bathurst 24-hour once, and was inducted into the V8 Supercars Hall of Fame in 2001. Brock's business activities included the Holden dealer team, HDT, that produced Brock's racing machines, as well as a number of modified high-performance road versions of his racing cars. On the 8th of September 2006, while driving in the Targa West 06 rally, Brock was 3 kilometres from the finish of the second stage of the race at Gidgeganup, about 40 kilometres from Perth, Western Australia, when he skidded off a downhill left-hand bend on Clenton Road for over 50 metres in his 2001 Daytona sports car and hit a tree sideways in the driver's door. The 61-year-old Brock died within a couple of minutes of the impact. Brock's children accepted the offer of a Victorian state funeral, with former partner Bev telling ABC Radio, "Brock was loved. He was in the public eye, and everything had to be done with a flourish and with a bang. It's probably the way he would want to go out, and how he would want to be remembered." Kay Cotty. Kay Cotty, AO, born on the 25th of January 1954, is an Australian sailor who was the first woman to perform a single-handed, non-stop and unassisted circumnavigation of the world. She performed this feat in 1988 in her 37 feet 11 metres yacht Blackmore's First Lady, taking 189 days. Born Kay McLaren, the youngest of 4 daughters, in Sydney on the 25th of January 1954, Cotty grew up in the southern Sydney suburb of Sans Souci. She was born into a yachting family and was taken sailing for the first time when only a few weeks old. Cotty now lives in Yamba on the far New South Wales north coast with television producer husband Peter Sutton. She is an international motivational speaker, skilled boat builder, writer, painter, and sculptor. On the 5th of June 1988, at age 34, Kay Cotty became the first woman to sail around the world alone, non-stop and unassisted when she sailed through Sydney Heads. She was greeted by tens of thousands of well-wishers. Cotty had left the harbour 189 days earlier, on the 29th of November 1987. The historic voyage on her 37-foot yacht, Blackmore's First Lady, was also the fastest sailing trip around the world by a woman and the first solo, non-stop and unassisted voyage around the world by a woman. In the Southern Ocean, Cotty's boat was knocked down continuously and she was washed overboard. When Cotty rounded Cape Horn, the southernmost tip of South America, she celebrated with a lunch of crab, mayonnaise and self-baked bread and a bottle of Grange, a prestigious Australian wine. Since her round-the-world trip, Kay Cotty has received numerous accolades. In 1988, Cotty received the Australian of the Year award. In January 1989, Cotty was appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia. Cotty is also the first Australian recipient of the Cutty Sark Medal presented by the Duke of Edinburgh. Inaugural inductee of the Australian Sailing Hall of Fame in 2017. Patrick White. Patrick Victor Martindale White, born 28th of May 1912, died 30th of September 1990, was an Australian writer who published 12 novels, 3 short story collections, and 8 plays from 1935 to 1987. White's fiction employs humour, florid prose, shifting narrative vantage points, and stream of consciousness techniques. In 1973, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for an epic and psychological narrative art which has introduced a new continent into literature, as it says in the Swedish Academy's citation, the only Australian to have been awarded the prize. White was also the inaugural recipient of the Miles Franklin Award. White was made Australian of the Year for 1974, but in a typically rebellious fashion, his acceptance speech encouraged Australians to spend the day reflecting on the state of the country. Privately, he was less than enthusiastic about it. In a letter to Marshall Best on 27th of January 1974, he wrote, "Something terrible happened to me last week. There is an organisation which chooses an Australian of the Year who has to appear at an official lunch in Melbourne Town Hall on Australia Day. This year I was picked on as they had run through all the swimmers, tennis players and yachtsmen." In 1981, White published his autobiography, Flaws in the Glass, a self-portrait which explored issues about which he had publicly said little, such as his homosexuality, his dislike of the subservient attitude of Australian society towards Britain and the royal family, and also the distance he had felt towards his mother. On Palm Sunday, 1982, White addressed a crowd of 30,000 people, calling for a ban on uranium mining and for the destruction of nuclear weapons. White died in Sydney on 30th of September 1990. Ashley Barty. Ashley Barty, born 24th of April 1996, is an Australian professional tennis player and former cricketer. She is ranked number 1 in the world in singles by the Women's Tennis Association, or the WTA, and is the second Australian singles number 1 after fellow Indigenous Australian Yvonne Goolagong Cawley. She has also been a top 10 player in doubles, having achieved a career high ranking of number 5 in the world. Barty has won 12 singles titles and 11 doubles titles on the WTA Tour, including 2 Grand Slam singles titles, the 2019 French Open and 2021 Wimbledon Championships, and 1 Grand Slam doubles title at the 2018 US Open with partner Coco van der Weijck. She is ranked number 1 in the world in singles. Born in Ipswich, Queensland, Barty began playing tennis at the age of 4 in nearby Brisbane. She had a promising junior career, reaching a career high ranking of number 2 in the world after winning the girls' singles title at Wimbledon in 2011. As a teenager, Barty had early success in doubles on the WTA Tour in 2013, finishing runner-up at 3 Grand Slams doubles events with veteran Casey Delacroix, including at the Australian Open while still only 16 years old. Late in the 2014 season, Barty decided to take an indefinite break from tennis. She ended up playing cricket during this hiatus, signing with the Brisbane Heat for the inaugural Women's Big Bash League season, despite having no formal training in the sport. Barty returned to tennis in early 2016. She had a breakout year in singles in 2017, winning her first WTA title at the Malaysian Open and rising to number 17 in the world, despite having never been ranked inside the top 100 before her time off. She also had another prolific year in doubles with Delacroix, culminating in her first appearance at the WTA finals in doubles. Barty then won her first premier, mandatory and Grand Slam tournament titles in doubles in 2018 before accomplishing the same feat in singles in 2019. She also led Australia to a runner-up finish at the 2019 Fed Cup. Dick Smith. Richard Harold Smith, AC, born 18th of March 1944, is an Australian entrepreneur, record-breaking aviator, philanthropist and political activist. He holds a number of aviation world records and is the founder of Dick Smith Electronics, Australian Geographic and Dick Smith Foods. He was selected as 1986 Australian of the Year. In 2010, he founded the media production company Smith and Nash with the intention of producing films about global issues. In 2015, he was awarded the Companion of the Order of Australia. He is a Fellow of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. Smith has had a keenly pro-Australian business philosophy going back as far as 1975, when faced with an invasion by the relative juggernaut Tandy of the United States into the local electronics business. Smith founded Dick Smith's Foods in 1999, a crusade against foreign ownership of Australian food producers, particularly Arnott's Biscuits, which in 1997 became a wholly owned subsidiary of the Campbell's Soup Company. Dick Smith Foods only sold foods produced in Australia by Australian-owned companies, and all profits went to charity. In 2018, Smith announced closure of the business in 2019, having distributed over Australian $10 million in profits to charity, citing aggressive competition from German-owned Aldi through a strategy including low-cost imports, notwithstanding Aldi's claim to operate an Australian-first buying policy. Smith was named an Australian Living Treasure in 1997. Smith was appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia in the Australia Day Honours of 1999 for his services to the community, charity and business. In 2000, Smith was named the 2000 Adventurer of the Year by the Australian Geographic Society after he made a trans-Tasman balloon trip from New Zealand to Australia. The Australian government honoured Smith with the Centenary Medal in 2001 for service to the centenary of Federation celebrations. The Bulletin magazine, then Australia's longest running, named Smith on the 2006 list of 100 most influential Australians. On the 16th of November 2013, Dick Smith was inducted into the Australian Aviation Hall of Fame. In October 2014, Dick Smith received a special Australian Geographic Society Award for 50 years of adventure. In 2015, Smith was advanced to a Companion of the Order of Australia, the nation's highest order of chivalry, for eminent service to the community as a benefactor of a range of not-for-profit and conservation organisations through support for major fundraising initiatives for humanitarian and social welfare programs, to medical research and to the visual arts and to aviation. Ita Buttrose. Ita Claire Buttrose, AC, OBE, born on the 17th of January 1942, is an Australian journalist, businesswoman, television personality and author. She was the founding editor of Clio, a high-circulation magazine aimed at women aged 20 to 40 that was frank about sexuality and, in its infancy, featured nude male centrefolds, and later as the editor of the more conventional Australian Women's Weekly. She was the youngest person to be appointed editor of the weekly, which was then, per capita, the largest selling magazine in the world. In his 2007 book, Gerald Stone claimed that Buttrose and Kerry Packer conducted a private but intense affair during Buttrose's tenure on Clio, and that Packer reportedly even offered to marry her, but she rejected the idea and they split after a blazing row. Buttrose is also a prolific author and has published 9 books, including her autobiography, A Passionate Life. In 2011, Penguin published a guide to Australian etiquette. Buttrose was made an Officer of the Order of the British Empire, OBE, in 1979 and appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia, AO, in 1988. In 2003, she was awarded the Centenary Medal. Buttrose was inducted into the Victorian Honour Roll of Women in 2001 and advanced to Companion of the Order of Australia in 2019. In August 2017, Buttrose was recognised for outstanding lifetime achievement at the annual Kennedy Awards for Excellence in Journalism. In 2019, Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced Buttrose as the new chair of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the ABC. John Farnham. John Peter Farnham, AO, born on the 1st of July 1949, is a British-born Australian singer. Farnham was a teen pop idol from 1967 until 1979, billed then as Johnny Farnham, but has since forged a career as an adult contemporary singer. His career has mostly been as a solo artist, though he replaced Glenn Shorrock as lead singer of Little River Band from 1982 to 1985. In September 1986, his solo single, You're the Voice, peaked at number 1 on the Australian singles charts. The associated album, Whispering Jack, held the number 1 position for a total of 25 weeks and is the second highest selling album in Australian history. Both the single and the album had top 10 successes internationally, including number 1 in Sweden. Farnham has become one of his country's best known and most popular performers, and he is the only Australian artist to have a #1 record in 5 consecutive decades, with singles Sadie, The Cleaning Lady in 1967, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head in 1970, and Age of Reason in 1988, and albums Whispering Jack in 1986, Age of Reason in 1988, Chain Reaction in 1990, then again in 1993, 33 and a third in 2000, and the last time in 2002. Farnham has been recognised by many honours and awards, including 1987 Australian of the Year, 1996 Officer of the Order of Australia, and 19 ARIA Awards, including his 2003 induction into the Hall of Fame. From 1969, he was voted by TV Week readers as the King of Pop for 5 consecutive years. Gina Reinhardt. Georgina Hope Gina Reinhardt, born on 9th of February 1954, is an Australian mining magnate. Reinhardt is the executive chairman of Hancock Prospecting, a privately owned mineral exploration and extraction company founded by her father, Lang Hancock. Reinhardt was born in Perth, Western Australia, and spent her early years in the Pilbara. She boarded at St Hilda's Anglican School for Girls and then briefly studied at the University of Sydney, dropping out to work with her father at Hancock Prospecting. She was Lang Hancock's only child, and when he died in 1992, leaving a bankrupt estate, she succeeded him as executive chairman. She turned a company with severe financial difficulties into the largest private company in Australia and one of the largest mining houses in the world. When Reinhardt took over Hancock Prospecting, its total wealth was estimated at 75 Australian million, which did not account for group liabilities and contingent liabilities. She oversaw an expansion of the company over the following decade, and due to the iron ore boom of the early 2000s, became a nominal billionaire in 2006. In the 2010s, Reinhardt began to expand her holdings into areas outside the mining industry. She made sizable investments in 10 Network Holdings and Fairfax Media, although she sold her interest in the latter in 2015, and also expanded into agriculture, buying several cattle stations. Reinhardt is one of Australia's richest people. Her wealth reached around Australian $29 billion in 2012, at which point she overtook Christy Walton as the world's richest woman and was included on the Forbes list of the world's 100 most powerful women. Reinhardt's net worth dropped significantly over the following few years due to a slowdown in the Australian mining sector. Forbes estimated her net worth in 2019 at a US $14.8 billion as published in the list of Australia's 50 richest people. However, her wealth was rebuilt again during 2020 due to increased demand for Australian iron ore, so that by May 2021, her net worth as published in the 2021 Financial Review Rich List was estimated in excess of Australian $30 billion, while in March 2021, the Australian Business Review stated her wealth equalled an Australian $36.28 billion. As of September 2020, Forbes considered Reinhardt one of the world's 10 richest women. In a May 2021 Guardian Australia investigation, it was reported that Reinhardt was the single largest landowner in Australia at over 9.2 million hectares or 23 million acres, just over 1% of Australia's total landmass. Ian Thorpe. Ian James Thorpe, AM, born on 13th of October 1982, is an Australian retired swimmer who specialised in freestyle, but also competed in backstroke and the individual medley. He has won 5 Olympic gold medals, the most won by any Australian. With 3 gold and 2 silver medals, Thorpe was the most successful athlete at the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney, Australia. At the age of 14, Thorpe became the youngest male ever to represent Australia, and his victory in the 400-metre freestyle at the 1998 Perth World Championships made him the youngest ever individual male world champion. After that victory, Thorpe dominated the 400-metre freestyle, winning the event at every Olympic, World, Commonwealth and Pan-Pacific Swimming Championships until his break after the 2004 Olympics in Athens. At the 2001 World Aquatics Championships, he became the first person to win 6 gold medals in one World Championship. Aside from 13 individual long course world records, Thorpe anchored the Australian relay teams, numbering the victories in the 4 times 100 metre and the 4 times 200 metre freestyle relays in Sydney among his 5 relay world records. His wins in the 200 metre and 400 metre and his bronze in the 100 metre freestyle at the 2004 Summer Olympics made him the only male to have won medals in the 100 to 200 to 400 combination. He acquired the nickname Torpedo because of his speed in swimming. Thorpe announced his retirement from competitive swimming in November 2006, citing waning motivation. He made a brief comeback in 2011 and 2012. In total, Thorpe has won 11 World Championship gold medals. This is the 3rd highest number of gold medals won by any swimmer. Thorpe was the first person to have been named Swimming World Swimmer of the Year 4 times and was the Australian Swimmer of the Year from 1999 to 2003. His athletic achievements made him one of Australia's most popular athletes, and he was recognised as the Young Australian of the Year in 2000. Aside from his swimming achievements, Thorpe has received numerous honours and accolades during his life, including in 2000 Young Australian of the Year, in 2001 awarded Medal of the Order of Australia, OAM, 2001 the Centenary Medal, 2012 awarded Human Rights Medal for his charity work with Indigenous children, and in 2019 advanced to Member of the Order of Australia, AM, in recognition of his significant service to youth and Indigenous education through charitable initiatives and to swimming. Nellie Melba. Dame Nellie Melba, GBE, born as Helen Porter Mitchell on the 19th of May 1861, died 23rd of February 1931, was an Australian operatic soprano. She became one of the most famous singers of the late Victorian era and the early 20th century, and was the first Australian to achieve international recognition as a classical musician. She took the pseudonym Melba from Melbourne, her hometown. Melba studied singing in Melbourne and made a modest success in performances there. After a brief and unsuccessful marriage, she moved to Europe in search of a singing career. Failing to find engagements in London in 1886, she studied in Paris and soon made a great success there and in Brussels. Returning to London, she quickly established herself as the leading lyric soprano at Covent Garden from 1888. She soon achieved further success in Paris and elsewhere in Europe, and later at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, debuting there in 1893. Her repertoire was small. In her whole career, she sang no more than 25 roles and was closely identified with only 10. She was known for her performances in French and Italian opera, but sang little German opera. During the First World War, Melba raised large sums for war charities. She returned to Australia frequently during the 20th century, singing in operas and concerts, and had a house built for her near Melbourne. She was active in the teaching of singing at the Melbourne Conservatorium. Melba continued to sing until the last moments of her life and made a large number of farewell appearances. Her death in Australia was news across the English-speaking world, and her funeral was a major national event. The Australian $100 note features her image. Melba's autobiography, Melodies and Memories, was published in 1925, largely ghostwritten by her secretary, Beverly Nichols. Nichols later complained that Melba did not cooperate in the process of writing or by reviewing what he wrote. Full-length biographies devoted to her include those by Agnes G. Murphy in 1909, John Hetherington in 1967, Therese Raddick in 1986, and Anne Blanley in 2009. Alan Border. Alan Robert Border, AO, born on the 27th of July 1955, is an Australian cricket commentator and former international cricketer. As a batsman, Border was also for many years the captain of the Australian team. His playing nickname was AB. He played 156 test matches in his career, a record until it was passed by fellow Australian Steve Waugh. Border formerly held the world record for the number of consecutive test appearances of 153 before it was surpassed in June 2018 by Alistair Cook, and is second on the list of number of tests as captain. He was primarily a left-hand batsman, but also had occasional success as a part-time left-arm orthodox spinner. Border amassed 11,174 test runs, a world record until it was passed by Brian Lara in 2006. He hit 27 centuries in his test career. He retired as Australia's most capped player and leading run scorer in both tests and one-day internationals. His Australian record for test match runs stood for 15 years before Ricky Ponting overtook him during the third Ashes test against England in July 2009. He's the only player to have scored 150 in each innings of a test, 150 and 153, a record which still stands. Border was one of the 55 inaugural inductees of the ICC Cricket Hall of Fame. In 2009, as part of the Q150 celebrations, Alan Border was announced as one of the Q150 icons of Queensland for his role as a sports legend. In 2016, Border was a recipient of the Queensland Greats Awards. In a fan poll conducted by the CA in 2017, he was named in the country's best Ashes 11 in the last 40 years. Border left his successor Mark Taylor with a side that went on to be the best in the world. Border's chief regret as captain is said to be his failure to beat the West Indies, something Taylor did the following year. Border became a member of the Order of Australia, AM, in 1986, and an officer of the Order of Australia, AO, in 1989. The Australian Cricketer of the Year now receives the Alan Border Medal, with the inaugural award being won by Glenn McGrath in 2000. Quentin Bryce. Dame Quentin Alice Louise Bryce, AD CVO, born on the 23rd of December 1942, is an Australian academic who served as the 25th Governor-General of Australia from 2008 to 2014. She is the first woman to have held the position and was previously the 24th Governor of Queensland from 2003 to 2008. Born in Brisbane, she attended the University of Queensland, where she completed a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Laws, becoming one of the first women accepted to the Queensland Bar. In 1968, Bryce became the first woman appointed as a faculty member of the law school where she had studied, and in 1978, she joined the new National Women's Advisory Council. This was followed by appointment to a number of positions, including the first director of the Queensland Women's Information Service, the Queensland Director of the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission, and the Federal Sex Discrimination Commissioner in 1988. Her services to the community saw her appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia in 1988, and a Companion of the Order of Australia and Dame of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem in 2003. In 2011, Elizabeth II invested Bryce as a Commander of the Royal Victorian Order at Government House. Bryce was appointed Governor of Queensland in 2003. Although concerns were raised by some over her time in the office, her 5-year term was going to be extended until 2009. However, on the 13th of April 2008, it was announced by Prime Minister Kevin Rudd that Bryce was to become the next Governor-General of Australia. The decision was generally well received, and on the 5th of September 2008, Bryce was sworn in, succeeding Major General Michael Jeffrey and becoming the first woman to hold the office. Bryce holds a number of honorary degrees from Macquarie University in 1998, Charles Sturt University in 2002, Griffith University and James Cook University in 2003, Queensland University of Technology in 2004, the University of Queensland in 2006, University of Sydney in 2010, the University of Western Sydney in 2012. In 2016, Bryce was a recipient of the Queensland Greats Award. Bryce is a Life Fellow of the Australian Academy of Law. She was appointed an Honorary Fellow of the Academy of the Social Sciences in Australia in 2010. Fred Hollows. Frederick Cossum Hollows, AC, born 9th of April 1929, died 10th of February 1993, was a New Zealand-Australian ophthalmologist who became known for his work in restoring eyesight for thousands of people in Australia and many other countries. It is estimated that more than 1 million people in the world can see today because of initiatives investigated and instigated by Hollows, the most notable example being the Fred Hollows Foundation. In 1961, he went to Moorfields Eye Hospital in England to study ophthalmology. He then did postgraduate work in Wales before moving in 1965 to Australia, where he became an associate professor of ophthalmology at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. He was responsible for organising the Royal Australian College of Ophthalmologists to establish the National Trachoma and Eye Health Program, the Trachoma Program, in 1976 to 1978, with funding by the federal government. Hollows himself spent 3 years visiting Aboriginal communities to provide eye care and carry out a survey of eye defects. More than 460 Aboriginal communities were visited and 62,000 Aboriginal people were examined, leading to 27,000 being treated for trachoma and 1,000 operations being carried out. His visits to Nepal in 1985, Eritrea in 1987, and Vietnam in 1991 resulted in training programs to train local technicians to perform eye surgery. These experiences motivated him to find a way to reduce the cost of eye care and treatment in developing countries. Hollows organised intraocular lenses laboratories in Eritrea and Nepal to manufacture and provide lenses at cost, which was about an Australian $10, which was approximately US $7.50 each. Both laboratories started production after his death in 1993. Today, the factories have produced millions of lenses and a continuing reminder of his enduring impact. The Fred Hollows Foundation was launched as an Australian charitable foundation in Sydney on the 3rd of September 1992 to continue the work of Fred Hollows in providing eye care for the underprivileged and poor and to improve the health of Indigenous Australians. The foundation has also registered as a charity organisation in the United Kingdom, where Fred did much of his training, and in his country of birth, New Zealand. Hollows died in Sydney in 1993. His recognition and awards are numerous, including in 1981, Advance Australia Award for Aboriginal Eye Care, in 1985, offered appointment as an honorary officer AO of the Order of Australia, but he refused to accept the award. And in 1990, he received the Human Rights Medal and was named Australian of the Year and received a second Advance Australia Award for Medicine and Overseas Aid. In 1991, he was appointed Companion of the Order of Australia, AC, and was named the first honorary citizen of Eritrea. 1993, he received the Royal Australian College of Ophthalmologists Medal, presented to him the night before he died. And in 2004, he entered into the Hall of Fame at the inaugural New South Wales Aboriginal Health Awards. In 2006, he was named one of the 100 most influential Australians by the Bulletin magazine. Maggie Beer. Maggie Beer AM, born Margaret Ann Ackerman, born 19th of January 1945, is an Australian cook, food author, restaurateur, and food manufacturer living in the Barossa Valley. Beer is one of the judges on the Great Australian Bake Off alongside Matt Moran and is also a regular guest on MasterChef Australia. Despite not having any formal training as a chef, Beer has accumulated a triumphant career spanning almost 5 decades. Her only paid cooking job was at a Scottish sailing school during a European trip in her early 20s. She stated, "I used the whole of their larder for the 4-month season in 8 weeks because I'm a very generous cook. That's the only way I know how to cook." After relocating from Sydney to the Barossa Valley, Maggie and her husband Colin established the Farm Shop in 1979, which morphed into the Barossa Pheasant Farm restaurant later that year. The restaurant became known for serving locally sourced pheasant as well as a pate, known as Pheasant Farm Pate. In 1991, the restaurant was awarded the Remy Martin Cognac, Australian Gourmet Traveller Restaurant of the Year Award. Maggie and Colin operated the hugely successful restaurant until 1993. In 1997, Beer was the Telstra South Australian Businesswoman of the Year. Beer was awarded the Centenary Medal on the 1st of January 2001 for service to Australian society through cooking and writing. She was awarded the Senior Australian of the Year in 2010. In the Australian Day Honours of 2012, Maggie Beer was appointed a member of the Order of Australia, AM, for service to the tourism and hospitality industries as a cook, restaurateur and author, and to the promotion of Australian produce and cuisine. Gustav Nossal. Sir Gustav Victor Joseph Nossal, AC, CBE, FRS, FAA, born on the 4th of June 1931, is an Austrian-born Australian research biologist. He is famous for his contributions to the fields of antibody formation and immunological tolerance. In 1965, at the age of 35, Nossal became director of Walter and Eliza Hall Institute of Medical Research, a position that he kept until 1996. In parallel, he was Professor of Medical Biology at the University of Melbourne. Nossal's research is in fundamental immunology in the field of antibody formation and immunological tolerance. He has written 5 books and 530 scientific articles in this and related fields. Nossal has been president from 1970 to 1973 of the 30,000-member world body of immunology, the International Union of Immunological Societies, president of the Australian Academy of Science from 1994 to 1998, a member of the Prime Minister's Science, Engineering and Innovation Council, or PMSEIC, from 1989 to 1998, and chairman of the Victorian Health Promotion Foundation from 1987 to 1996. He has been chairman of the committee overseeing the World Health Organization's vaccines and biological programs from 1993 to 2002, and chairman of the Strategic Advisory Council of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Children's Vaccine Program from 1998 to 2003. His awards and recognitions are numerous. In 1967, Fellow of the Australian Academy of Science. 1969, Phi Beta Kappa Award in Science. 1969, SSI Honorary Member. 1970, Emil von Behring Prize. 1970, appointed a Commander of the Order of the British Empire. 1977, knighted for his groundbreaking work in immunology. 1979, awarded the Macfarlane-Burnett Medal. 1982, awarded the Anzac Medal. 1989, appointed a Companion of the Order of Australia. 1990, awarded the Albert Einstein World Award of Science. 1994, awarded James Cook Medal. 1996, won the Koch Gold Medal. 1997, listed as one of the 100 Australians identified as Australians' living national treasures. 2000, named as Australian of the Year. 2001, recipient of the Centenary Medal for Distinguished Service to the Study of Antibody Formation and Immunological Tolerance. 2010, awarded the inaugural Monash Medal as an Outstanding Australian. Tim Flannery. Timothy Flannery, FAA, born on the 28th of January 1956, is an Australian mammologist, paleontologist, environmentalist, conservationist, explorer, and public scientist. He has discovered more than 30 mammal species, including new species of tree kangaroos. He served as the Chief Commissioner of the Climate Commission, a federal government body providing information on climate change to the Australian public before the Commission was abolished by the Abbott government as its first act of government. On the 23rd of September 2013, Flannery announced that he would join other sacked commissioners to form the Independent Climate Council that would be funded entirely by the community and continue to provide independent climate science to the Australian public. Flannery is a professional fellow at the Melbourne Sustainable Society Institute, University of Melbourne. Flannery was named Australian Humanist of the Year in 2005 and Australian of the Year in 2007. Until mid-2013, he was a professor at Macquarie University and held the Panasonic Chair in Environmental Sustainability. He was also chairman of the Copenhagen Climate Council an international group of business and other leaders that coordinated a business response to climate change and assisted the Danish government in the lead up to COP15. In 2015, the Jack P. Blaney Award for Dialogue recognised Tim Flannery for using dialogue and authentic engagement to build global consensus for action around climate change. His views on shutting down conventional coal-fired power stations for electricity generation in the medium term are frequently cited in the media. In 1980, Flannery discovered dinosaur fossils on the southern coast of Victoria, and in 1985 had a role in the groundbreaking discovery of Cretaceous mammal fossils in Australia. This latter find extended the Australian mammal fossil record back 80 million years. Flannery has long spoken out about the impacts of climate change in Australia and internationally, and has achieved prominence through his environmental activism. His advocacy on two issues in particular, population levels and carbon emissions, culminated in being named Australian of the Year in 2007, at a time when environmental issues were becoming prominent in Australian public debate. His other awards include the Edgeworth David Medal for Outstanding Research in Zoology, Centenary of Federation Medal for his services to Australian science, Australian Humanist of the Year in 2005, New South Wales Australian of the Year in 2006, the New South Wales Premier's Literary Prizes, the US Lannan Award, the New York Times bestseller list, Order of St. Charles Monaco, and the Leedy Award in 2010. Fellow of the Australian Academy of Science in 2012, and Jack P. Blaney Award for Dialogue in 2015 and 2016. Fiona Wood. Fiona Melanie Wood, AM, FAHMS, born the 2nd of February 1958, is an English-born Australian plastic surgeon working in Perth, Western Australia. She is the director of the Royal Perth Hospital Burns Unit and the Western Australia Burns Service. In addition, Wood is also a clinical professor with the School of Paediatrics and Child Health at the University of Western Australia and director of the Macomb Research Foundation. Wood worked at a major British hospital before marrying Western Australian-born surgeon Tony Kierath and migrating to Perth with their first two children in 1987. She completed her training in plastic surgery between having 4 more children. In October 2002, Wood was propelled into the media spotlight when the largest proportion of survivors from the 2002 Bali bombings arrived at Royal Perth Hospital. She led a team working to save 28 patients suffering from between 2 and 92% body burns, deadly infections, and delayed shock. She was named a member of the Order of Australia, AM, in 2003. She was named Australian of the Year for 2005 by Australian Prime Minister John Howard at a ceremony in Canberra to mark Australia Day. In March 2007, following the crash landing of Garuda Indonesia Flight 200, Wood travelled to Yogyakarta to assist in the emergency medical response for burn victims. Wood has become well known for a patented invention of spray-on skin for burn victims, a treatment which is being continually developed. Where previous techniques of skin culturing required 21 days to produce enough cells to cover major burns, Wood has reduced the period to 5 days. Through research, she found that scarring is greatly reduced if replacement skin could be provided within 10 days. As a burn specialist, the holy grail for Wood is scarless, woundless healing. And there we go. That is it for our series on Australia's famous and interesting people. I hope you enjoyed hearing all about them. So many amazing people that have achieved so much. And you never know, we may do another episode if you'd like to hear more. Bye for now.